The wind howled through the broken windows as he stepped out of the truck, his daughter clutching tightly to his sleeve. The air smelled of rain and rust. Before them stood the old farmhouse, leaning, splintered, and swallowed by weeds. The paint had long peeled away, the windows fogged with years of dust. It looked like a place the world had forgotten, and for a moment, he almost wished they could forget it too. But this was all they had. He had driven for hours with nothing but a half-tank of gas and a promise to find somewhere safe for his little girl. Every shelter was full. Every door had been closed to them. When he saw the faded for sale sign along the dirt road, hanging crooked under the weight of time, something in him told him to stop. The land didn't belong to anyone anymore. It was abandoned, just like them. "Dad," his daughter whispered, her small voice trembling, "we can't live here." He looked down at her, pale, tired, her jacket 2 sizes too small. "Just for one night," he said softly. But the words felt hollow. One night always turned into another. He pushed the door open, the hinges screaming as if they hadn't been touched in decades. Inside, the air was thick and stale. His flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a room frozen in time, broken furniture, a fireplace filled with ashes, and a single chair sitting in the middle of the floor. Dust drifted like snow in the beam of light. He could feel it, the heaviness of the place. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was watchful, like the walls were waiting for him to remember something he couldn't. His boots sank into the old wooden floorboards, each step echoing louder than it should. As his daughter explored behind him, her flashlight stopped on something hanging crooked on the wall, an old black and white photograph of a man in uniform, standing proudly on the same porch they had just walked across. The man in the photo looked exactly like him. He froze where he stood, the beam of his flashlight trembling against the wall. The photograph was yellowed with age, its edges curling inward, but the face was clear, clearer than it should have been after so many years. The man in uniform stood tall, his expression solemn, his hand resting on the railing of the same porch they had just crossed. Same jawline. Same eyes. Same faint scar across the left eyebrow. It was like looking into a mirror from another lifetime. He stepped closer, his breath fogging the glass. "That can't be," he whispered. The frame rattled slightly when he touched it, and a cloud of dust fell from the wall. Behind him, his daughter's voice broke the silence. "Dad, who is it?" "I don't know," he murmured, though the words felt wrong. He did know. Somewhere deep inside, in the place where memories blur with dreams, something told him he'd seen that face before. He took the frame off the wall. Behind it, the wallpaper was torn, revealing something carved into the wooden wall underneath. Initials. 3 of them. JHR. His chest tightened. Those were his father's initials. His flashlight flickered, the light growing weaker. He turned toward his daughter, forcing a smile he didn't feel. "Let's find a place to rest," he said softly. She nodded, clutching the small stuffed rabbit she carried everywhere. They made a small bed out of blankets in the corner of the living room. The roof leaked, and the sound of wind whistling through cracks in the walls filled the silence. He sat near the fireplace, running his fingers over the photo again. The soldier's uniform was from another era. World War II, maybe. He'd seen pictures like that in history books. But why was his father's name carved behind it? His mind spun with questions that had no answers. His father had never talked much about family. He'd grown up in foster care after his dad disappeared, never knowing where he came from, only that there were no records of anyone with their last name before him. But now, standing in this forgotten house, surrounded by dust and shadows, it felt like the past was whispering his name. Outside, a low rumble echoed through the night, distant thunder, or something heavier. The old windows rattled. He glanced toward the front door, instinctively alert. Years in the military had trained him to recognize when something wasn't right. And right now, nothing about this place felt right. He stood up, grabbing his flashlight again. "Stay here," he told his daughter. "I'll just check outside." She nodded sleepily, curling under the blanket. The porch groaned under his boots as he stepped outside. The rain had started to fall, soft at first, then harder, hitting the roof in rhythmic bursts. The trees swayed in the wind, their branches scraping against the house like fingers. He moved the flashlight across the yard, scanning the overgrown grass, the collapsed fence, the dark outline of the barn in the distance. For a moment, he saw nothing. Then, something glinted near the base of the barn door, a reflection of metal. He walked toward it slowly, the mud sucking at his boots. As he got closer, he saw it wasn't a random piece of scrap. It was a sign, half buried in dirt, the paint faded but still readable. It said, *** Rivers Family Farm, estimated 1944. *** His heart skipped. That was his last name. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the fields in stark white. In that brief second, he saw something standing at the edge of the property, a figure. Too far to make out, but tall, unmoving, watching. The thunder followed a moment later, deep and rolling. When he shined the flashlight toward the spot, it was empty. He hurried back inside, slamming the door behind him. His daughter stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy." "It's okay," he whispered, forcing calm into his voice. "Go back to sleep." But he couldn't. He sat by the window, staring into the storm. The photo lay beside him on the floor. He picked it up again, tracing the outline of the soldier's face. Behind it, the initials stared back at him from the wall, a quiet reminder that this wasn't just a shelter. This was a place he was meant to find. When he finally closed his eyes for a moment of rest, he dreamt of soldiers marching through fog, of a man calling his name from somewhere he couldn't see. And when he woke, just before dawn, there was mud on the floor, footprints leading from the front door to where the picture had hung. Only 2 prints. Barefoot. And not his. The footprints stopped right in front of the wall where the photograph had hung, dark smudges against the old wooden floor. He crouched beside them, tracing their edges with a shaky hand. They were clear, the shape of toes, the curve of a heel. Too large to be his daughter's. And too fresh to be old. The air in the room felt colder than before, thick with the smell of damp wood and something faintly metallic. His pulse quickened as he straightened up, scanning the room again. Nothing moved. The house was silent except for the soft rattle of rain against the window. He walked to the front door, half expecting it to be open, but it was still bolted shut from the inside. He checked the windows too, locked, sealed by years of dirt and grime. The logical part of his mind told him the prints were just a trick of the storm, maybe his own from the night before. But another part of him, the one that had survived war and known danger, told him otherwise. He could feel it. Someone had been there. His daughter was still asleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit tightly. He didn't want to wake her, not yet. Instead, he picked up his flashlight again and turned back toward the wall. The initials, *J.H. seemed deeper now, as if freshly carved. He pressed his fingers against the grooves, half expecting the wood to crumble. But it didn't. It felt solid, cold, and strangely smooth, like it had been carved into something hollow. He tapped it once. The sound echoed. Hollow. He tapped again, lower this time. Another hollow thud. His breath hitched. There was space behind the wall. A hidden gap or maybe an entire room. He looked around until his flashlight beam landed on a crowbar near the fireplace, rusted but still sturdy. He wedged it into the seam between the panels and pulled. The wood resisted, groaning in protest, but after a few strong tugs, one board splintered and gave way. Behind it was darkness, a narrow space just wide enough for a man to crawl through. He leaned forward, shining the light inside. The beam caught something metallic, a set of stairs leading downward. The air that drifted up was cold and still, untouched by time. He swallowed hard, his heart thundering. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. He turned back toward his daughter, sleeping soundly in the corner. For a moment, he thought about leaving it alone, waiting until morning. But the curiosity, that familiar, dangerous pull, won. He grabbed his jacket and started down the stairs. Each step creaked under his weight. The walls were lined with rough stone, damp to the touch. The deeper he went, the stronger the smell of earth and rust became. His flashlight flickered, cutting in and out, and in those moments of darkness, he thought he heard something, a soft shuffle, the faint sound of breathing that wasn't his. At the bottom of the stairs, the passage opened into a small underground room. It looked like a cellar, but older, built by hand. The floor was dirt, uneven and wet. Wooden beams supported the ceiling, covered in cobwebs. And in the center of the room sat an old trunk, large and iron-banded, covered in a thick layer of dust. He knelt beside it, brushing the dirt away. The lock had long rusted through. He hesitated, then lifted the lid. The hinges groaned. Inside were stacks of yellowed papers, a few small boxes, and a folded flag, the kind given to soldiers' families. His chest tightened as he picked it up. Beneath the flag was a leather-bound journal, cracked and faded. The first page was dated 1944. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. The entry spoke of war, of pain, of hope, written by someone trying to keep their sanity. But as he turned the pages, the entries changed. The tone shifted from discipline to fear. One line caught his eye. Asterisk, if anyone finds this place, they'll know the truth. The river's men don't die. They return. Asterisk, he froze, staring at the words. The ink was smeared as if someone had written it in a hurry. His flashlight flickered again, and for a split second, he saw movement reflected in the metal of the trunk, a shadow behind him. He spun around, heart pounding, but the room was empty. Only the echo of dripping water filled the silence. Then came the soft creak of a floorboard above him, slow, deliberate, directly overhead. Someone was in the house. He killed the light and held his breath. The sound above him was faint at first, like the floorboards groaning under weight, but it wasn't random. It was a rhythm. Step. Pause. Step. Whoever, or whatever, was up there was moving slowly, carefully, as if trying not to be heard. He tightened his grip on the flashlight, his pulse hammering in his ears. The cellar was dark now, the air thick with dust and damp earth. Each breath felt too loud. He moved toward the stairs, careful not to make a sound. The wooden steps creaked softly under his boots. As he reached the top, he stopped, listening again. The footsteps had stopped too. For a moment, all he could hear was the faint drip of water from somewhere below and the whisper of wind through the cracks in the walls. Then, from the far corner of the house, something scraped across the floor, long and slow, like a chair being dragged. He pushed open the cellar door, stepping into the dim light of early morning. The storm had passed, leaving the air heavy and still. His daughter was still sleeping in the corner, untouched. Relief hit him for a moment, until he saw it. The photograph that had hung on the wall was lying face down on the floor, the glass cracked. He bent down, picking it up, and his blood ran cold. The soldier in the picture, the one who looked exactly like him, was gone. The space where he had stood was empty. He dropped the frame, the sound echoing through the house. The hollow quiet that followed made his skin crawl. He turned back toward his daughter just as she stirred. "Dad," she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "It's okay, sweetheart," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "Just a bad storm. Go back to sleep." But even as he spoke, he could feel it again, that same heavy stillness pressing against the walls. Something was watching them. He walked to the front window, brushing the curtain aside. The fields outside stretched endlessly, wet and glistening in the pale dawn light. Everything looked normal, until he saw the barn. Its doors were wide open. He was sure they'd been closed the night before. He grabbed his jacket, quietly stepping outside before his daughter could follow. The morning air bit at his skin, sharp and cold. The barn loomed ahead, half collapsed, its roof caved in on one side. As he approached, a faint smell of oil and burnt wood drifted out. He stepped inside, the floor crunching under his boots. Dust hung in the air, catching the light that streamed through the cracks in the walls. In the center of the barn was an old workbench, tools scattered across it, and something covered with a top. He pulled it back, and froze. Underneath was another trunk, identical to the one in the cellar. Its lid was already open. Inside lay the same folded flag, the same leather journal, and a photograph. But this one was different. It was newer, clearer. It showed him and his daughter standing by the porch of the farmhouse. The same clothes, the same expressions, the same light, exactly as they had been yesterday when they arrived. His hand trembled as he lifted it. The back of the photo had something written in smudged ink. Asterisk, welcome home, Jacob. Asterisk, his throat tightened. That was his name. No one alive should have known they were here. Behind him, the barn door creaked. He turned sharply, his flashlight beam slicing through the dust. For a split second, he saw movement, a figure stepping back into the shadows. "Who's there?" he shouted. No answer. He took a step forward, the beam shaking in his hand. The silence was absolute. Then, from the far end of the barn, came a voice, soft, cracked, almost familiar. "You came back." The light flickered across the far wall, and for an instant, he saw a silhouette, tall, wearing an old military coat, the edges of his face hidden in shadow. The smell of smoke and iron filled the air. The figure didn't move closer, but the words that followed froze him where he stood. "You left us once. Don't leave again." He stumbled backward, bumping into the workbench. The sound broke the silence, and in that instant, the figure was gone. Only the photograph in his hand remained, but now there were 3 people in it. Him, his daughter, and the soldier from the original picture, standing right behind them. He didn't remember running, but somehow, he was back inside the house, the door slammed shut behind him. His breath came in sharp bursts, his palms slick with sweat. The photo he had dropped in the barn still burned in his mind, that image of himself, his daughter, and the soldier who shouldn't exist. He backed against the wall, trying to think, trying to breathe. The sound of the wind outside was gone. The world had gone completely still. Even the creak of the old house seemed to have stopped. He could hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then, faintly, a floorboard groaned upstairs. His daughter. He forced himself to move, legs heavy like they were made of stone. Each step up the staircase felt slower, harder. "Emma," he called softly, his voice breaking the silence like a whisper in a church. No answer. The light from his flashlight shook as his hand trembled. He reached the top of the stairs and saw her standing at the end of the hallway, barefoot, still half asleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Dad," she said softly, his back. The words froze him. "Who?" he asked, his throat dry. "The man from the picture." Before he could react, a loud bang came from downstairs, the sound of something heavy falling. He scooped her up and ran back down. The living room was darker now, the storm clouds outside blotting out the morning light. The fireplace crackled faintly though he hadn't lit it. The smell of smoke and ash filled the air. On the table sat the journal from the cellar, open to a page he hadn't reached yet. The handwriting was his grandfather's, but the words looked freshly written. The ink was still wet. It read, *, he found the way back. Don't let him in. *, he backed away slowly, his daughter clutching his neck. Don't let who in, he whispered. But he already knew. He could feel it, that same presence from the barn, from the storm. It wasn't gone. It was waiting. The front door rattled violently, once, then again. The sound echoed through the house like thunder. The latch began to shake as if something was pushing from the other side. He put Emma down and motioned for her to hide behind the old couch. Stay there, he whispered. No matter what happens, don't move. He grabbed the crowbar from beside the door, his grip slick with sweat. The latch stopped rattling. Silence. He waited, listening. Then, 3 slow knocks echoed from the other side. Each one was louder than the last. He tightened his grip, his breath coming in shallow bursts. Who's there? He shouted. No answer. Just the creak of the porch and the soft scrape of boots on wood. He opened the door in one motion, ready to swing. But there was no one there. Only the empty yard, wet with rain. The fog had returned, thick and suffocating. He stepped out slowly, scanning the trees. I know you're there, he said, his voice low. Show yourself. Nothing. Then, from behind him, his daughter screamed. He turned, sprinting back into the house. She was standing in the middle of the room, pointing toward the window. He's in the reflection, she cried. He looked, and his blood ran cold. In the reflection of the glass, he saw the soldier standing behind them, face pale and eyes hollow. But when he turned, there was no one there. The floorboards shuddered. The house seemed to breathe, the walls groaning under invisible weight. The journal on the table flipped open again, pages fluttering like wings. His flashlight flickered, and for a moment, the soldier's voice filled the room, calm, distant, and heavy with sorrow. You left me to die, it said. He felt his knees weaken. Who are you? You know who I am. The flashlight flickered again, and for an instant, he saw the soldier clearly, standing in the doorway, wearing a uniform soaked in mud and ash, the same face as his own. The same scar. The same eyes. He stumbled backward, grabbing his daughter's hand. Emma, he whispered, his voice trembling, we are leaving. The soldier's head tilted slightly, almost pitying. You can't, he said. This is where it began. This is where it ends. The windows shattered all at once, the wind roaring through the house like a scream. The last thing he saw before the light went out was the photograph on the floor, now showing only 2 people again. Him and the soldier. The child was gone.